Life's most unexpected lessons often unfold in the most ordinary settings. For Elon Musk, one of the world's most visionary and influential figures, this lesson arrived on a quiet Tuesday afternoon at a suburban Taco Bell. It wasn't a boardroom negotiation or a groundbreaking innovation that defined his day, but rather a chance encounter that would ripple far beyond the walls of the fast food restaurant. Dressed in a plain hoodie and jeans, Elon Musk was unrecognizable to most as he walked through the doors. It was an unusual sight. One of the wealthiest and busiest men in the world, craving something as simple as a Crunchwrap Supreme. But as fate would have it, this unassuming moment wasn't just about satisfying a hunger for fast food. Instead, it became a moment of connection, compassion, and action that left a lasting impression on everyone involved. The story begins as Musk, seeking a brief escape from his relentless schedule, finds himself unexpectedly drawn to Taco Bell. This seemingly mundane choice becomes the backdrop for an extraordinary tale, a story of desperation, resilience, and the transformative power of empathy. For Elon Musk, Tuesdays often blended into a blur of meetings, emails, and high-stakes decisions. As the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, his life revolved around deadlines, ambitious goals, and constant innovation. But on this particular Tuesday afternoon, he felt a rare and overwhelming need to step away. It wasn't exhaustion. Elon was accustomed to long hours, but rather an inexplicable pull to pause and recharge. It was a craving, not just for food, but for a moment of simplicity. Fast food, in particular, was a nostalgic indulgence, a small slice of his early days when life was simpler, his ambitions raw and unrefined. Back then, between coding marathons and brainstorming sessions, he'd often grab a quick bite, his focus entirely on the next project, not the luxury or prestige that would later surround him. That afternoon, the craving led him to Taco Bell. The ideas seemed almost absurd. Here was a man who envisioned colonizing Mars and redefining transportation, driving his Tesla to a suburban fast food joint. The parking lot, tucked between a convenience store and a strip mall, was the epitome of ordinary. But for Elon, that was precisely its charm. Parked on the other side of the lot, as his Tesla glided silently into the parking spot, Elon chuckled to himself. The media would have a field day with this. Elon Musk spotted indulging in fast food, but he wasn't here to impress anyone. For a few minutes, he just wanted to be another person grabbing lunch, a billionaire in disguise. Stepping out of his car, Elon adjusted his plain black hoodie, blending into the crowd with ease. There was no entourage, no security detail, no fanfare, just him. This unassuming image wasn't a facade. It was part of who he was. Despite his wealth and influence, Elon had a knack for staying grounded, finding joy in the small, seemingly trivial moments of life. The restaurant's familiar chime greeted him as he entered, and for a moment he was just another customer in line. The scent of seasoned beef and melted cheese filled the air, bringing with it a strange sense of comfort. Around him, the scene was as typical as it could get. Customers chatting at booths, the faint hum of the soda machine in the background, and employees bustling behind the counter. Elon scanned the menu, though he already knew what he wanted, a Crunchwrap Supreme, 2 of them, in fact. Why not? This wasn't a day for half measures. As he approached the counter, the cashier froze momentarily, her eyes widening as recognition dawned. It wasn't every day that someone as famous as Elon Musk walked into a Taco Bell, but she quickly composed herself, her professionalism overriding her shock. "Hi, welcome to Taco Bell. What can I get for you?" she asked, her voice tinged with nervousness. Elon smiled faintly, sensing her discomfort but not wanting to draw attention. "2 Crunchwrap Supremes, please," he said simply. The interaction was brief but surreal for the cashier. Elon handed her his card, received his receipt, and moved aside to wait for his order. For him, this was a rare moment of calm, a pause from the demands of his extraordinary life. As Elon stood by the counter, his thoughts wandered back to his relentless schedule. SpaceX was gearing up for major milestones with Starship, Tesla was in the throes of AI advancements, and his tunneling project at the Boring Company was gaining traction. These were the challenges that defined his days, but in this moment, they felt distant, almost trivial. Different. His gaze drifted around the restaurant, taking in the mundane scene. He appreciated the anonymity, the freedom to simply exist without the constant scrutiny that came with fame. Yet even in this quiet moment, something tugged at his senses. A faint awareness that his peace was about to be interrupted. It was then that he heard it. A hushed conversation from a nearby booth. The voices were low, almost conspiratorial, but they carried a weight that caught Elon's attention. His focus sharpened, his instincts telling him that something significant was unfolding just a few feet away. As Elon stood waiting for his order, his thoughts were interrupted by a barely audible conversation. The words were hushed, yet they seemed to carry an emotional intensity that drew his attention. Turning his head slightly, he noticed two boys seated at a booth nearby. They couldn't have been older than 14, their youthful faces clouded with worry as they leaned in close to each other. "How old?" "We have to do it tonight," the older boy whispered urgently. "Mom's not going to get better if we don't." Elon's initial reaction was curiosity. Perhaps it was just a heated debate over a video game or a school project. But as he listened further, the gravity of their words became clear. The younger boy's voice trembled as he responded, "But what if we get caught? You know what they do to people who steal." The word steal struck Elon like a lightning bolt. He froze, his hand hovering over the counter where he had been idly resting it. The casual background noise of the restaurant faded as his focus narrowed entirely on the boys' conversation. Glancing discreetly in their direction, Elon could see them more clearly now. They were dressed in worn clothes that hinted at hard times, their postures heavy with a burden no child should bear. The older boy, clearly the leader, was trying to project confidence, but his hunched shoulders betrayed his fear. The younger boy, on the verge of tears, seemed torn between loyalty to his brother and the gnawing dread of the consequences. "It's just the cash from the register," the older boy said, his voice low but firm. "No one will know. We need it, and I don't know how else we can get the money." Elon's mind raced as he pieced together the fragments of their conversation. The boys weren't planning a prank or a petty act of rebellion. This was something deeper, a desperate attempt to survive. The mention of their mother needing medicine solidified it. They weren't thieves by nature. They were two children trying to save the most important person in their lives. Elon's food arrived, handed to him by the cashier, who remained oblivious to the unfolding drama. He nodded absently, his focus still on the boys. As he held the bag, he realized he had a choice to make. He could ignore what he'd heard, leave the restaurant, and let fate take its course. After all, he was just here for a quick meal. But walking away wasn't in Elon's nature. He had built his career on solving problems, no matter how insurmountable they seemed, and now he found himself faced with a very human problem, one that couldn't be fixed with rockets or algorithms. Elon approached the counter again, his voice calm but purposeful. "Could you add 2 more Crunchwrap Supremes to my order?" he asked the cashier. She blinked, surprised, but quickly punched in the request. Elon paid for the additional food, then turned toward the boys. His heart pounded, not with nerves, but with determination. He had to handle this delicately. These kids were scared and vulnerable, and any misstep could push them further down the wrong path. With the extra food in hand, Elon made his way to their booth. The boys didn't notice him at first, too wrapped up in their anxious planning. But as he drew closer, the older boy's head snapped up. His eyes widened in recognition, his expression a mix of awe and panic. Elon smiled gently, keeping his tone casual. "Hey guys," he said, holding up the bag. "Mind if I sit here for a second? I ordered too much food and I thought you might help me out." The boys exchanged a nervous glance. The older one hesitated, clearly unsure of Elon's intentions, but the promise of food, and perhaps the sheer shock of Elon Musk standing in front of them, overrode his instincts. Sure, he said, his voice uncertain. Elon slid into the seat across from them and set the bag on the table. He pulled out the crunch wraps and placed one in front of each boy. Their eyes flicked between the food and Elon, confusion and hunger battling for dominance. "Go ahead," Elon said with an encouraging nod. "They're for you." As the boys unwrapped their food, Elon leaned back, giving them space to settle. The tension between them was palpable, their nervous energy radiating across the table. They ate cautiously, their eyes darting toward Elon as if expecting him to reveal an ulterior motive. Elon broke the silence with a calm, steady voice. "I couldn't help but overhear a bit of your conversation," he began. "Sounds like you're dealing with something really tough." The boys froze, mid-bite. The younger one's face paled, while the older one immediately went on the defensive. "We weren't doing anything wrong," he said quickly, his tone tight and guarded. Elon raised a hand in a gesture of reassurance. "I get it, you're not in trouble, I just want to help." His gaze softened as he added, "You mentioned your mom. She's sick, right?" At this, the younger boy's eyes filled with tears. He blinked them away furiously, but his composure was slipping. The older boy swallowed hard, his protective instincts warring with the weight of their situation. Finally, he nodded. "Yeah," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "She's really sick. She needs medicine, and we don't have the money. We've tried everything." Elon paused for a moment, taking in the gravity of the situation. The boys were barely teenagers, yet they carried a burden that would break many adults. Their desperation was palpable, and it was clear they had exhausted every avenue they knew to help their mother. "You don't have to do this," Elon said gently, his tone steady and reassuring. "Stealing isn't the answer. It might feel like the only option, but trust me, it will only make things worse. Not just for you, but for your mom too." The older boy looked down, his lips trembling as he clutched his uneaten crunch wrap. His defenses were crumbling, the weight of his emotions finally breaking through. "But we don't have a choice," he said quietly, his voice barely audible. "The medicine is expensive, and we're out of money. We can't lose her." Elon leaned forward slightly, meeting the boy's eyes with a calm yet earnest gaze. "I know it feels like you're out of options," he said, "but there's always another way. You're not alone in this. I can help." The younger boy, who had been silent up until now, finally spoke, his voice wavering. "Why would you help us?" he asked, his wide eyes filled with a mix of hope and disbelief. Elon smiled softly. "Because I've been where you are. Maybe not exactly like this, but I've faced moments where it felt like the odds were stacked against me, and I've been fortunate enough to have people help me when I needed it. Now it's my turn to do the same." The boys stared at him, their expressions shifting from mistrust to cautious hope. Elon continued, his voice steady but filled with warmth. "Let me take care of the medicine and any other expenses your mom needs. You don't have to do this alone." The older boy's shoulders sagged as the tension drained from his body. For the first time in what must have felt like forever, he allowed himself to hope. "You'd really do that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elon nodded. "Yes, and I don't want anything in return. All I ask is that you take care of each other and your mom. She's lucky to have kids who care about her as much as you do." The younger boy's tears finally spilled over, and he wiped at them with the sleeve of his worn sweatshirt. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice breaking. Elon reached across the table, placing a reassuring hand on the older boy's shoulder. "We'll figure this out together," he said. "I'll make some calls, and we'll get her the help she needs. You don't have to carry this by yourselves anymore." For the next few minutes, the boys sat quietly, eating their food with newfound ease. The tension that had clung to them like a heavy fog began to lift, replaced by a sense of relief and gratitude. Elon stayed with them, asking questions about their mother's condition and jotting down notes on his phone. As he listened, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't about his wealth or status, It was about doing what was right when the opportunity arose. He knew he couldn't solve every problem in the world, but in this moment he could make a difference for one family. When Elon finally stood to leave, he left the boys with a promise. He would handle everything. The older boy, now visibly calmer, extended a hand. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady for the first time. Elon shook his hand, smiling. "You're welcome. Remember, you're stronger than you think, and no matter how tough things get, there's always someone willing to help. You just have to let them." As Elon walked out of the Taco Bell and back to his Tesla, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The challenges waiting for him in boardrooms and on launch pads suddenly seemed less daunting. For all the grand visions he had for the future, it was these small human moments that reminded him of what truly mattered. As Elon drove away from the Taco Bell, the encounter lingered in his thoughts. The scene replayed in his mind, the desperate whispers of the boys, their reluctant hope, and the way their burden had lifted, if only for a moment. For a man whose life revolved around solving monumental problems, revolutionizing transportation, colonizing Mars, and advancing AI, this small, personal moment felt just as significant. It was a reminder that while grand visions push humanity forward, it's the everyday connections that truly ground us. Elon began to think about the broader implications of what he had just experienced. How many other families were facing similar struggles? How many other children were forced to contemplate desperate measures just to survive? Despite his focus on technological progress, Elon had always believed in humanity's potential for good. His companies were built on the idea of creating a better future, not just for a privileged few, but for everyone. This encounter reaffirmed his belief that the same principles applied on a smaller scale. Whether it was a groundbreaking innovation or a simple act of kindness, the goal was the same: to make life better. The boys' courage and determination also struck a chord with Elon. Despite their youth and limited resources, they had taken it upon themselves to find a solution, however flawed. Their love for their mother had driven them to the brink of an irreversible decision, but it was their desperation that brought Elon into their lives. Reflecting on this, Elon saw parallels to his own journey. In his early days, before Tesla and SpaceX, he had faced countless obstacles. There were moments when failure seemed inevitable, but he had pressed on, driven by an unshakable belief in his vision. In those boys, he saw a spark of that same resilience, albeit shaped by vastly different. As he continued driving, Elon began formulating a plan. It wasn't enough to help one family. He wanted to address the systemic issues that forced people into such dire situations. He thought about leveraging his influence and resources to create a foundation aimed at providing assistance to families in need, whether it was for medical expenses, education, or emergency support. This idea wasn't new to him. He had long believed in using his wealth to make a tangible difference. But this encounter had crystallized the urgency of that mission. It wasn't just about creating a better future. It was about ensuring that no one was left behind in the present. A few days later, Elon followed up with the boys as promised. True to his word, he had arranged for their mother to receive the medicine and medical care she needed. He also ensured that the family had financial support to get back on their feet. The boys' gratitude was overwhelming, but for Elon, the real reward was knowing that their future was no longer overshadowed by fear and desperation. In their mother's recovery, he saw the ripple effect of kindness. The boys, now unburdened, could focus on their education and their dreams. Their family's story, once defined by struggle, now had the potential to inspire others. The Taco Bell encounter became a defining moment not just for the boys, but for Elon as well. It was a reminder that success isn't measured solely by achievements or accolades, but by the lives we touch along the way. For those who heard the story, it served as a powerful example of how even the smallest acts of compassion can create lasting change. Whether you're a billionaire, a teacher, or a student, the ability to make a difference lies within us all. As Elon Musk returned to his everyday life, boardrooms, innovations, and the relentless pursuit of progress, he carried the Taco Bell encounter with him. It wasn't just a fleeting moment, it became a part of his personal narrative, a reminder of the responsibility that comes with privilege and influence. The story spread quietly at first, shared by the boys and their mother with those closest to them. But as it reached a wider audience, it resonated deeply with people from all walks of life. It wasn't just because of Elon's fame or wealth, it was because his actions revealed a simple truth. Kindness has the power to transform lives. What made this story so compelling was its universality. At its core, it wasn't about Elon Musk, the billionaire, or the boys, the ones in need. It was about the connections we share as human beings. The ability to recognize someone else's pain and the willingness to act, even when it's inconvenient. The boy's story highlighted the desperation that many families face, while Elon's response showcased the profound impact of stepping in with compassion and resources. It wasn't a grand gesture designed to gain attention. It was a quiet act of humanity, rooted in empathy and a desire to make things better. For viewers and readers of this story, there are several powerful takeaways. Empathy is a bridge. The ability to understand and feel another person's pain can bridge the gap between privilege and need. It allows us to see beyond circumstances and into the shared humanity that connects us all. Small actions create big changes. Whether it's buying a meal for someone in need or stepping in to offer support during a crisis, even the smallest acts of kindness can have a ripple effect that transforms lives. Responsibility comes with privilege. Those with resources, whether financial or otherwise, have a unique opportunity to use their advantages for good. Elon's actions serve as a reminder that wealth isn't just a measure of success. It's a tool for impact. Every problem has a solution. The boy's story illustrates the importance of seeking help and believing in possibilities, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Elon's intervention shows that solutions often come from unexpected places. As this story comes to a close, it's worth asking yourself, what would you have done in Elon's position? Would you have walked away, assuming it wasn't your problem? Or would you have stepped in, knowing you had the power to help? And perhaps more importantly, how can we bring this same spirit of empathy and action into our own lives? Whether it's through small gestures or larger commitments, each of us has the ability to create change. If this story inspired you, consider how you can make a difference in your own community. It doesn't take billions of dollars or a high-profile platform. Sometimes all it takes is listening, noticing, and caring enough to act. We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories of kindness. Have you ever witnessed or been part of a moment like this? Share it in the comments below, because together we can keep the ripple effect of kindness alive. The Taco Bell encounter may have started as a simple craving for fast food, but it became a moment of profound connection and impact. It's a story that reminds us of our shared humanity and the extraordinary power of ordinary acts of kindness. Whether you're a billionaire, a teacher, or a student, the ability to make a difference lies within us all. Thank you for watching, and remember, the smallest actions can lead to the biggest changes. We'll see you in the next video.